Welcome back to the third part of the fiction reading log, which will be talking about conflicts that we see and as character traits of main characters that we have in the short stories or the books that we're reading. When we're talking about conflict, there are two types. There's internal and external. An internal conflict would be one that goes on within the mind or the head or the body of our main character, and an external conflict would be something on the outside, something that we can see. Maybe the character is fighting against one individual, or maybe they're fighting for the good of society, or maybe they're battling something in nature. So you would indicate what type of conflict it is, and there's all kinds of conflicts. Generally, good books and good short stories have multiple conflicts to focus on. For 7th grade by Gary Soto, there are certainly internal and external conflicts. We're going to focus on an internal conflict. So my character is Victor. He's my protagonist. He's my main character, the person that the conflict centers around. And because I'm focusing on an internal conflict, I want to talk about his crush or his love for Teresa. So it's an internal conflict of Victor versus his crush. So the first thing I want to do is talk about a character trait that Victor has. And after reading the story and seeing some of the things that Victor does, I see that he has a lot of qualities, and there's some great sample qualities that we have, great adjectives that would describe a protagonist or an antagonist. But when I think of Victor, the one that hits home the most for me is ambitious. This kid will stop at nothing to get Teresa to like him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my protagonist character trait as being ambitious, and I would write it right here. The next thing that I have to do is find actions, thoughts, or words of a character that support that trait. So it's going to be my responsibility to go into the book and find a direct quote, words and phrases that I pull right from the story in order to be able to prove that he has the character trait of ambition. So one of the things that I think about, he's done a lot that show that he'll stop at nothing. He lingers behind in classrooms, he's scowling, he starts saying that he knows French when he doesn't, and at the very end he goes to the library and he selects French books so he can teach himself French so that he can tutor Teresa because she thinks that he knows French as a result of all of the ambition that he has displayed. So I need to go back into my short story and find passages that support it. And when I read the last passage, it says, he raced to metal shop, and after metal shop there was biology, and after biology a long sprint to the public library where he checked out 3 French textbooks. So I think the fact that he went sprinting around to the library certainly shows ambition. I'm going to put that as actions, thoughts, and words to prove his character trait. So I have quotation marks there. That's to prove that I'm taking it word for word. And I read a whole paragraph, but I don't really have a lot of space, so I'm going to find the critical parts that prove that particular trait, and I'm going to say, he checked out 3 French textbooks. And that's the end of my passage right from the book. That came from page 12, so I'm going to put a 12 in parentheses. I'm not finished though. I have to make the connection and explain how the fact that he checked out 3 textbooks shows ambition. And it might be as simple as just writing a couple sentences about it, or 1 or 2 sentences that say how it shows ambition. But regardless, I must explain it. So I'm going to put an EX, that's to prove that I'm explaining something, and I'm going to say this demonstrates ambition because he's willing to teach himself, because Victor is willing to teach himself a new language . To impress Teresa. All right, so I have my direct quote, and I've explained it. The next thing I want to do is I want to show a quality of this crush that he has. It's an internal conflict. So I want to think of something that is really eating away at him and shows the nature of the crush. How is the crush toward him? And I might say that it's destructive. Because when I look back through, I see qualities of the crush as having sort of a negative impact on him. Now I need to find that. I have to find out a time that shows that it's actually destructive and negative toward him. And when I look here, I see a part that he had never been so embarrassed, and he bit his thumb until he tore off a sliver of skin. Well, that's destructive right there. So I want to use that. So again, I grab my direct quote, I put quotation marks around it, I take it directly from the book, I use my ellipsis since I'm cutting some things out, and I write, he bit his thumb until he tore off a sliver of skin. And that's on page 11, so I indicate that. I make my parentheses and I put my 11 in there so I know that that's where it came from. And then, even though it seems obvious, I mean the kid's tearing his thumb apart, that it's destructive, I still have to explain that. So I might want to say something like, his actions illustrate destruction because his crush is so out of control that he hurts himself because of it. So that reinforces the idea that it's destructive. He gets so nervous and so worked up that he winds up tearing slivers of his own skin off of his thumb. So I've made that connection. I have my quote and I have my explanation. Thanks for listening. Up next we've got theme and how to figure it out.